Marsha's favorite vase.
She always says don't play ball in the house.
Pork chops and applesauce. That's swell.
Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. Hey, you guys. Oh, my nose!
Welcome to Here's the Story, a Brady Bunch podcast. Hey, I'm not going to tear this thing apart. It's my favorite show. It's episode 14, Father of the Year. Debuting on January 2nd, 1970, we have the first episode in the 70s. But have we really left the 60s behind already? Well, not exactly. You see, the rest of these episodes for Season 1 were filmed in 1969. And when I'm done talking about those, I have a few more things for you. Author William Johnston wrote 5 paperback novels with original stories about the Brady Bunch, 3 of which came out in 1969. And there's also the 2 issues of Dell Comics I mentioned last episode, with the first one being for sale before this year ended. And after that, the Bradys become synonymous with the 1970s. So we start this episode with Mike heading to a meeting in the morning, and he gets stopped by Marcia, who needs help with her homework. Carol says she'll help, to which Marcia replies, "Mother, it's math!" And so Mike decides to stay, and he'll be late for the meeting. Well, if Carol is so useless when it comes to math, then when Alice offered to help Greg with his math homework 10 episodes earlier in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, why did he brush her off and say, "Oh, Mom is a whiz with this stuff"? Later on, we see Marcia in the family room finishing her math homework and then cleaning up the morning newspapers that are strewn about. In previous episodes, the kids leave for school at the same time that Mike goes to work. But here, Marcia's still at home long after Mike has left. Is Mike working on the weekend? Does Marcia not have school that day? And if so, then couldn't her homework have waited till Mike got home from his meeting? Anyway, while cleaning up the papers, she notices an article titled Father of the Year Essay Contest. If you pause it and zoom in, you can read that the details of the contest are all about housing development zoning restrictions. In the next scene, the day is over and the kids are all long asleep. Cindy and Jan wake to notice that Marcia is not in her bed. When they go looking for her, they find their mom and Alice in the kitchen ironing clothes in silence, like an all-night sweatshop. Then they find Marcia in Mike's den. She's writing her Father of the Year essay when Jan says, "Are you writing a letter to that creep Felix Brown? Look at the continuity we've got going here. Felix Brown was the creep that Greg's campaign manager wanted to start a rumor about Marcia being seen at the movies with in episode A Vote for Brady." Just then, Mike gets home and catches the girls in his den, and we see the wall behind his drafting table for the first time. Geez, Mike, was that a 14-hour shift on the weekend? Good thing Marcia didn't wait for help with her homework. Anyway, now Marcia's in trouble for being in the den and being out of bed after bedtime. As she starts to mope off to bed, Mike says, "A wise man forgets his anger before he lies down to sleep. We'll talk about it in the morning." Too bad he didn't have any advice for wise women, because now Marcia can toss and turn all night as she wonders what's coming for her in the morning. How about this? Wise people talk about it now and then lie down to sleep with peace of mind. Right then, Mike knocks white out all over his blueprints and then absent-mindedly mops it up with his notes for a speech he has to give to the CIA. No, not that CIA. It's the Creative Institute of Architects. Side note, did you know that whiteout was invented by the mother of Mike Nesmith of the Monkees? And the other 3 Monkees would cameo in the Brady Bunch movie in 1995, and Davy Jones gets a whole Brady Bunch episode devoted to him in 1971. Okay, in the morning, Marcia comes to find her dad in his room getting ready for work as she's about to leave for school, and he blames her for the whiteout incident. Once she accepts the blame and starts to take it badly, he realizes that it was really just an accident and kindly gives her extra chores to do when she gets home. When he gets home that evening, he finds that the other kids did the extra chores because Marcia didn't. Not long ago, my mom was telling the story about how I never did my chores as a kid and my brother had to do all of them for me. Does that even sound realistic? I mean, I still got my allowance and he did all my work? And I guess the large wooden spoon that was regularly broken across my back was saved for worse offenses, like when the quarter being bounced off my bed sheets wouldn't land perfectly back in her palm. But I digress. Mike finds Marcia in her room where she has been busily writing that essay. He grounds her for a week for not doing the chores that he asked her to, and she crumples up the essay and throws it in the trash. Later that night, she can't sleep. She gets the essay out of the trash, writes a few more words on it, then folds it up twice and jams it in an envelope. That's when she realizes that the deadline for entries is tomorrow. So she climbs out her second-story window and down a wooden trellis covered with vines. When she steps off, we can see a large first-floor window beside her. The way the house is arranged, this would be to Alice's room. We'll see in future episodes that it's not. Mike and Carol check on the kids before going to bed, and we get a first-time look at the back wall of the boys' room, where the camera always has been placed before. And as they go to the girls' room, Marcia is climbing back into the window. And she can't tell her dad what all of this is about, because if she wins the contest, she wants it to be a surprise. So he punishes her by saying the whole family is going skiing this weekend without her. She'll have to stay at her grandparents'. The next day, the kids build a wooden ramp covered in hay for Alice to practice on because she's never been skiing. Once I saw Cindy laughing at Alice, I realized that even 6-year-old Cindy has skiing experience. Well, okay, maybe Mike took them skiing last year when he was dating Carol. A quick scene in Hamilton Samuel's office shows businessmen sitting around a desk deciding on who will win the essay contest. It's between two nobodies and Marcia Brady. Another quick scene of Jan and Cindy walking down a part of the upstairs hall we've never seen shows that the wall leading up to the boys' room has this strange design where every 12 inches the entire wall cantilevers in and out by 4 inches. What the heck is going on with this wall? It's corrugated. Then Marcia sees in the paper that the Father of the Year contest winner will be announced tomorrow, followed by more zoning rules for housing developments. And she almost tells Jan the secret of what she's been up to because Jan does her famous forple swear, but Cindy walks in.
I forple swear.
The next day, there's a knock at the door, and it's Lance Pierce from the local news. He calls Carol Mrs. Michael Brady, to which she answers yes. Wow, she doesn't even have her own identity. The TV crew sets the camera and the whole family up to watch Mike's reaction as he comes in through the front door. So, naturally, he comes in the back way through the sliding glass doors. It's pretty funny. The comedy really works in this episode. When Mr. Samuels pulls Marcia's letter out of the envelope for Mike to read, we can see that it's no longer a crumpled paper folded over twice, but now it's a perfectly flat paper that's been folded over 3 times accordion style. I think he might have rewrote it. Mike gets a plaque, and Marcia gets a hug. All's well in the Brady household. The final scene is of Mike and Carol in bed, looking at their photo in the newspaper. I guess we'll never know if Marcia went skiing. Actually, I'm sure she did. Mike had been wanting to bend the rules and bring her along the whole time anyway. It would be cool to see them have an episode at a ski lodge, but the budget didn't allow for it. A good premise for a book, though. This episode was series creator Sherwood Schwartz's favorite. It was written by Skip Webster as his second of 5 Brady scripts, but before he wrote this, he wrote my favorite episode of Here Come the Brides, Marriage Chinese Style. Actually, it's the only episode I've ever seen because it features Bruce Lee. And he would go on to write episodes of Fantasy Island featuring Florence Henderson, Maureen McCormick, and Eve Plum. Carol, Marcia, and Jan. Hamilton Samuels, publisher of the Daily Chronicle, was played by Oliver McGowan, who played the caretaker on Star Trek Shore Leave. He's the guy that ran that planet with the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. And a few more bits of info that I just learned, but are not particularly tied to this episode, are that Florence Henderson is wearing a wig in this first season. She had just cut her hair short for the off-Broadway revival of South Pacific before getting the role of Carol Brady. And she also spent the series begging the writers to give Carol a job during the series because in real life, she was a working mother of 4, but it's just not what Sherwood wanted for this show. And lastly, the opening tic-tac-toe arrangement of the Brady family during the theme song was a cutting-edge film technique invented by Canadian filmmaker Christopher Chapman called the multi-dynamic image technique. Even though everyone knows it as the Brady Bunch effect, Chapman showcased this technique for the first time in his 1967 short film, A Place to Stand. Until next time. Canadian filmmaker